Cars.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel-good car buying, all in one place.
Carry on, choose find and fund by Car.com.
At Romans, you can rent your next home from just £36, plus your first month's rent. No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us.
The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI Events.
Boris Johnson is set to meet his Irish counterpart later today, but Leo Varadkar has played down expectations, saying he doesn't anticipate a big breakthrough in talks. Willem is in Westminster with more on this story. And Willem, as we look at the FTSE 100, the issues swirling around Brexit at this point don't seem to be keeping equities back this morning. Just give us a sense of what we might learn today then that helps us understand the end game.
Well, there's quite a lot going on, and one of the reasons you might see stocks not necessarily moving in any major direction is because there are so many factors at play here. That meeting in Dublin, though, of course, is one of the main issues this morning. Mr. Johnson has floated the idea that the Northern Ireland and Irish food sectors and agricultural sectors could see some kind of regulatory alignment. But what Mr. Varadkar said yesterday as he toured one of the ports that will be so impacted by a no-deal Brexit is that that doesn't go nearly far enough. He'd like to see an economic zone that spanned the two territories in order to obviate the need for this Irish backstop that's been such a difficult element inside the withdrawal agreement that Johnson's predecessor Theresa May managed to negotiate with the European Union and which failed to get through Parliament. In terms of what Johnson is hoping to achieve himself is at least to find some common ground with Mr. Varadkar, something the Irish Prime Minister said was a possibility. And of course, this is the first time the two have met face to face, which Johnson's critics say is a massive, massive mistake. In terms of this possibility of no deal, Ernst & Young actually has a report out today showing that as many as 40,000 jobs in the Republic of Ireland could be lost if that were to be the outcome, and at least half that number in the Northern Ireland could be lost if there was a no-deal Brexit. And that's one of the reasons that Johnson's seen an ebb of support in his own Conservative Party. One of the reasons he lost to Cabinet Minister Amber Rudd over the course of the weekend. She said it seemed to her the government was fixated on pursuing no deal. 80 to 90% of the government's work at the moment, she said, was focused on that particular outcome. And she, like Boris Johnson's brother Joe Johnson, said she's not happy with the way that the 21 former Conservative MPs were treated after they voted against the government last week. Some other things going on today. Later on, once Johnson is back here in Westminster, he will once again try calling for an early election. We've heard from opposition parties that's not something that they're going to allow him to do. So once again, we could see him losing the vote on that. And this other issue, the legislation that was voted through last week in the House of Commons, the lower chamber here, that should in theory get royal assent. That's designed to block a no-deal Brexit at the end of October. There are members of Johnson's government who've made clear they would be looking at the applicability of that particular law once it's signed into statute books and could potentially challenge it. Amongst them is the British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab. Here's what he said to the BBC yesterday, to Sky News, I should say, yesterday.
We are going to do with that legislation is test very carefully what it does and doesn't require. And that's not only the lawful thing to do, I think it's the responsible thing to do. The irresponsible thing to do is to support that legislation, which weakens our negotiating position in Brussels.
And that legislation would potentially mandate Boris Johnson towards the end of October to seek an extension until late January of the current October 31st Brexit deadline. One thing that's worth noting, of course, there's no guarantee the European side would grant that extension request. Here's the French Foreign Minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, talking about his frustration about that kind of request given the current circumstances.
With how things are now, it's still a no to pushing back the Brexit deadline. The UK say they want to push forward alternative solutions, alternative arrangements to guarantee their withdrawal, to avoid a no deal. But we haven't received anything, so it's still a no. We're not going to start over every 3 months. It's up to the UK Parliament and the government to show us the way forward.
Now, there's a very good chance that this evening, after all of these votes are concluded, the prorogation of Parliament, the suspension of Parliament for 5 weeks will take effect. Before that, there are opposition lawmakers who are pushing for yet another emergency debate in the House of Commons behind me. They'll try and force, they say, the government to reveal details of its own analysis of no-deal Brexit, which of course were leaked a few weeks ago, and thus far they've been unwilling to publicise.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Willem, for that. Let's get back to the conversation around the desk. Christopher Mann is with us, Director of Asset Allocation and Senior Portfolio Manager at Baring Asset Management, and Geoffrey Yu, Head of the UK Investment Office of UBS Wealth Management. Chris, just to come back to you, what impact is the whole Brexit story having on portfolio construction for you?
Well, fortunately, the UK is only 3% of global GDP, so it doesn't massively affect global equity markets. And where we are seeing impact is, of course, in continental Europe, across the whole continent, including the UK, where CapEx plans are being put on hold, and you're seeing, as a result, consequently, lower earnings growth, lower PMIs, lower confidence, etc. So should all that be resolved in one way or another, it could be a source of good news, but right now it's a source of bad news. And just one other thing I'd just say about the Brexit debate. This story we've had over the last week about the 21 MPs, Joe Johnson resigning, Amber Rudd quitting, all that kind of development. The market has taken that very sterling positively. I'm not so sure, because now there's a chance for Boris Johnson to replace those 23 people with his own supporters, his own sort of hard Brexit supporters. So if everyone were to vote in exactly the same way as they did in 2017 at the last election, you return a parliament which is more pro-Brexit, not less.
Geoffrey, do you want to jump in on that note? Do you think the political winds are making a difference to risk-on sentiment here?
I think from our clients' point of view, if you look at the way they're positioned, they own a global portfolio, and even on the FTSE exposure, most of it is global as well on a look-through basis. So don't think it matters, that much. Again, I've pointed to the view of our international, client base. It's quite relevant for wealth management. For the UK, all the questions are still on when should I buy, when I want to come in. So there's a massive underweight out there. As soon as we get certainty, and to be frank, it doesn't really matter what type of certainty it is, then I think there's going to be a major readjustment in portfolios, and very well it could see UK become an overweight position again.
Eurozone peripheral bonds, let's just squeeze this in. What's the argument for owning them at this point as we watch the twists and turns on the Italian budget?
Well, the issue which has been driving bond markets all year is PMIs, and the weakness in PMIs have led to a huge rally in all government bonds of every different type of shade. The advantage for peripheral bonds now is if the PMI story goes up, in other words, we get a bout of confidence, it's far less problematic for peripheral bonds than it is for, say, governments. You know, they have that extra spread which gives them some cushion, and it's that part of the equation which is so interesting and so valuable.
Okay, thanks very much for coming in this morning. Good to see you.
Chris Vermael with us, the Director of Asset Allocation and Senior Portfolio Manager at Baring Asset Management. Jeffrey Yu staying with us from UBS Wealth Management, our guest host for this show. Coming up ahead, Germany, we are watching closely, which gets a boost from its export sector as Deputy Finance Minister Jörg Cookies reiterates his confidence in the economy. We'll have more from the Ambassador Forum right after the break.
The CNBC app has new features just for you, with real-time market data.
At Romans, you can rent your next home from just £36, plus your first month's rent. No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
At Screwfix, we're always here to help you get the job done. That's why we've made sure that hundreds of everyday products you need are at everyday prices. Look out for the low price badge in store and online. No wonder we've been trusted by the trade for 40 years. To find out more, visit screwfix.com or get down to your local store today. Screwfix, here when you need us.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA or protected, subject to availability and conditions.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
European markets this morning, despite a broad rally in Asian equities after Beijing cuts the RRR, and export data shows the trade war with the US is taking its toll. A minister resigns, a legal challenge mounts, but the UK Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay tells CNBC exclusively the government is working on a deal, denying accusations it's not making any real effort.
It's been going on for 3 years. We've already had 2 extensions. Let's get this done, but it does require the Commission not just to say in public that they will be creative and flexible, it also requires them in private to get into those discussions with us so we get this deal over the line.
Stronger crude prices push European oil majors higher after Saudi Arabia ousts Khalid Al-Falih and puts a royal in charge of the energy ministry for the first time. Turbulence ahead. Air France KLM trades at the bottom of the stock 600 after traffic figures disappoint. Meanwhile, a pilot strike grounds nearly every British Airways flight for the next 2 days.
In Europe have been trading for half an hour so far. All eyes this week on central bank activity, particularly here in Europe, as the ECB will meet. Now, the discussion so far is that many believe there will be a decision to act. Just the size and nature of that stimulus package delivered could be the surprise card for markets. So far, the benchmark guiding higher again, adding to gains from last week. We saw the market surging about 2% over the course of the week. So just adding a little bit on top to that, about 0.1% so far. When it comes to the core markets, the DAX out in front of the core ones, it's trading higher by about 0.25%. We've got a bit of a flat to weaker trade for the French stocks, but the FTSE here in the UK also firmer, about 0.4 north. And there's been a huge movement on the Brexit developments in the past week, and all eyes on talks today with the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar as Boris Johnson heads that way. Suggestions are that they'll just be working on their relationship rather than any big breakthrough solutions, but we will watch the news flow very, very closely. Let's push on to what we're seeing by sectors. Most were trading pause at the start, but a little bit more red moving onto the boards now. As you can see, a sweep from basic resources, 410 South, to food and beverages, travel and leisure, retail stocks, all in the mix of weaker performing sectors today. At the top, though, oil and gas from the outset, a firmer trade, 0.9 north. Don't forget there have been huge developments in the oil sector over the weekend with the removal of the Saudi oil minister, long-term player in the markets, Al-Falih, and markets are seeing what the implications are of having a royal now in charge of the portfolio. Banking stocks 0.6 higher, and autos also trading in the green. Let's take a look at what the stock moves are at an individual level. ProSiebenSat.1 is the top performer, 3.2+% in the green. This after UBS raised its recommendation on the stock to buy from neutral, that moving the needle. Centrica in the UK also trading in the green, 2.6% higher. Of some of the airline stocks worth noting, EasyJet and Air France KLM are trading weaker. The big one that many are watching around the pilot strike has been IAG, the owner of British Airways today, as you've seen the suspension for 2 days on most of its flights, which have been cancelled. So implications potentially for the sector.
German export data has surprised to the upside. July shipments rose 0.7% versus a Reuters forecast for a 0.5% decline. The data marks a positive start to the third quarter after a series of weak readings from Europe's largest economy. Interestingly, also in that data, Steve, an indication that Germany's surplus has gone up, which may not be read that well in the White House.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you and I were listening to a great set of comments from Mohamed El-Erian from Allianz on Friday, talking about the negative ramifications of negative interest rates. And if Europe thinks now that maybe the ECB is getting near to maximum capacity of what it can do, then there needs to be stimulus from other places. And the most obvious place to find that stimulus is the countries with a little bit of latitude, a little bit of freedom to actually spend more money. Now, that doesn't take rocket scientists to work out. It's countries in Northern Europe. It's countries such as Germany. So, Jeff, I channeled my inner Jeff Cutmore with Jürg Cookies because I know that you've asked some brilliantly pointed questions over the years to the Germans and others about